What if the safest place you've trusted with your retirement money is quietly becoming the most expensive place to keep it? Not because the bank is failing, not because someone is stealing from you, not because the stock market is crashing, but because the money sitting in your checking account or high-yield savings account may be triggering a chain reaction that affects your taxes, your Social Security benefits, and potentially even your future Medicare costs. Most retirees never see this coming. They receive a statement showing interest earned. The balance grows. The account appears healthy. The bank congratulates them for earning more than they did a year ago. Everything looks positive. Then tax season arrives. Suddenly, income that seemed harmless begins changing calculations they never knew existed. A larger portion of Social Security becomes taxable. Taxable income increases. Future financial planning becomes more complicated, and the retiree is left wondering why a decision that looked so safe created consequences nobody mentioned when the account was opened. The uncomfortable reality is that there is a specific dollar amount for every retiree where additional money in an interest-bearing account stops helping as much as they think and starts creating unintended financial consequences. The number is different for everyone, but the principle is the same. Today, we're going to walk through how this happens, why so many retirees overlook it, and how one simple calculation could reveal whether a portion of your savings is quietly working against your retirement strategy. Before we continue, take a moment to like the video and subscribe. Retirement planning isn't just about earning more money. It's about keeping more of the money you've already earned. Let's start with a story that mirrors what happens to countless retirees every year. Imagine a retiree who spent decades working, saving, avoiding unnecessary risk, and doing everything financial experts recommend. She receives Social Security. She has a modest pension. She owns a traditional retirement account, and she keeps a large emergency fund in a high-yield savings account. Nothing unusual, nothing risky. Nothing speculative. In fact, most people would describe her as financially conservative. A few years ago, she received a promotional offer from her bank advertising a much higher interest rate than her old savings account. Instead of earning a fraction of a percent, she could earn nearly 5% annually. The decision seemed obvious. Why leave money in a low-paying account when a better option was available? She moved the money. She felt smart. She felt responsible. She felt like she had improved her financial situation. In one sense, she was correct. But there was another side of the story she never saw coming. The account generated more than $10,000 in annual interest income. At first glance, that sounds fantastic. $10,000 is real money. Most retirees would gladly accept it. The problem is that the IRS doesn't view that interest as free money. Interest earned in a savings account is generally treated as ordinary taxable income. It becomes part of your overall financial picture. And once it enters that picture, it begins interacting with other rules that many retirees don't fully understand. This is where the first hidden issue appears. Many retirees assume Social Security is either fully taxable or completely tax-free. Neither assumption is accurate. The amount of Social Security that may be subject to taxation depends on a calculation known as provisional income. Most people have never heard of it until a tax professional mentions it. Yet it can have a major impact on retirement finances. Provisional income combines several sources of income and determines how much of your Social Security benefit may become taxable. As income rises, larger portions of Social Security can potentially be included in taxable income. The thresholds themselves have existed for decades. The challenge is that many retirees accidentally cross them without realizing it. And one of the easiest ways to cross them is through interest income generated by large savings balances. Think about how this works. A retiree may already receive pension income. They may receive dividends. They may have retirement account withdrawals. Then they add several $1,000s of interest from a high-yield savings account. Individually, none of these income sources seem problematic. Together, however, they can push provisional income beyond an important threshold. The result? A larger percentage of Social Security becomes taxable. Now, the retiree isn't only paying taxes on the interest. They're also facing additional taxation connected to benefits they were already receiving. That's the part many people miss. They focus on the income being earned but ignore the secondary effects. And sometimes those secondary effects are significant. Imagine earning several $1,000s of additional interest but discovering that the extra income triggered additional taxation elsewhere. Suddenly, the advertised return doesn't look quite as attractive. The number printed on the bank advertisement isn't necessarily the number you keep. And what matters in retirement isn't gross income, it's net income. It's what remains after all the calculations are complete. That's the money that pays bills. That's the money that funds vacations. That's the money that supports the lifestyle you've worked decades to build. The bank can tell you how much interest you're earning. It cannot tell you how that interest interacts with your taxes, your Social Security benefits, or your broader retirement strategy. This is one reason retirees need to think differently about income than they did during their working years. When you're employed, more income is generally straightforward. In retirement, every income source becomes part of an interconnected system. One decision influences another. One account affects another calculation. One source of income can trigger changes elsewhere. The retirees who understand these relationships often make more efficient decisions than those who look at each account in isolation. Now, let's talk about another factor that rarely gets enough attention: required minimum distributions. Many retirees eventually reach the age when they must begin taking withdrawals from traditional retirement accounts. Those withdrawals are generally taxable. That means future income often increases whether retirees want it to or not. If someone is already close to an important income threshold, the combination of required distributions and savings account interest can create additional pressure. The retiree who felt comfortable a few years earlier may suddenly discover they are operating in a completely different financial environment. This doesn't mean savings accounts are bad. Far from it. Emergency funds matter. Liquidity matters. Access to cash matters. The issue is not whether savings accounts should exist. The issue is whether the balance being held there makes sense relative to the retiree's entire financial picture. That's a very different question. Most people ask, "What interest rate am I earning?" Far fewer ask, "How is this interest affecting everything else?" Yet the second question is often more important than the first, because retirement planning is not simply about maximizing returns, it's about maximizing outcomes, and those are not always the same thing. Another area where confusion frequently appears involves Medicare planning. Many retirees focus on their current expenses without considering how today's income decisions may influence future costs. Government programs often look backward. Income reported today can affect calculations years later. That means a decision made this year doesn't necessarily stay in this year. The consequences can travel forward into the future. That's why planning matters. It's also why waiting until tax season can be expensive. By the time taxes are filed, the income has already been earned. The opportunity to make adjustments may have disappeared. The best time to evaluate income strategies is before the year ends, not after it ends. Retirees who understand this principle generally have more flexibility and more options. Now let's discuss another topic that creates unnecessary anxiety among retirees: large cash transactions. Many people have heard rumors about reporting requirements. They hear stories from friends. They hear advice from neighbors. They hear partial explanations online. And before long, myths begin spreading faster than facts. One of the most common mistakes involves people trying to structure transactions around reporting thresholds. Someone believes staying just below a certain amount will help them avoid attention. Unfortunately, That's exactly the type of thinking that can create unnecessary complications. Financial institutions routinely monitor transaction patterns. Their systems are designed to identify unusual activity. For honest retirees conducting legitimate business, routine reporting is generally not the issue. The issue occurs when people begin making decisions specifically to avoid reporting requirements. That's why transparency is usually the safest path. If a transaction is legitimate, proper documentation and straightforward behavior are typically far better than trying to outsmart a system most people don't fully understand. The broader lesson is that retirement today involves more moving parts than many people realize. Taxes, Social Security, Medicare, retirement accounts, interest income, investment income, cash management. Every piece connects to another piece, and the people who thrive financially are often the ones who understand those connections before they become expensive. The good news is that you don't need to become a tax attorney to understand the basics. You don't need an advanced finance degree. You simply need awareness. Awareness of how income is calculated, awareness of how benefits are affected, awareness of how different accounts interact. Because once you understand those relationships, you begin seeing retirement planning through a completely different lens. Instead of chasing the highest advertised yield, you begin evaluating the entire outcome. Instead of asking how much you earned, you start asking how much you kept. And that shift in thinking can make an enormous difference over the course of retirement. The reality is that most retirement mistakes don't happen because people are careless. They happen because people are focused on the wrong numbers. They watch interest rates. They watch account balances. They watch market headlines. But they rarely watch how all those pieces work together. And that's where costly surprises often begin. Consider two retirees who each have the same amount of savings. They live in similar homes. They receive similar benefits. They even earn similar rates of return. Yet 10 years later, one retiree has significantly more financial flexibility than the other. How is that possible? The answer often comes down to efficiency. One person focused exclusively on earning money. The other focused on keeping money. One person looked at individual accounts. The other looked at the entire financial system. One reacted after consequences appeared. The other planned before those consequences occurred. That difference may sound small, but over a retirement that lasts 20 or 30 years, it can become enormous. This is why successful retirement planning is rarely about finding a magic investment or a secret strategy. Most of the time, it's about understanding how ordinary financial decisions create long-term effects. And one of the most overlooked effects involves income stacking. Income stacking occurs when multiple sources of income combine in ways retirees didn't expect. A pension might seem manageable. Social Security might seem manageable. Interest income might seem manageable. Retirement account withdrawals might seem manageable. But when all of them are added together, the result can look very different. Many retirees never calculate the combined effect until a tax return forces them to see it. Unfortunately, by then, the year is already over. The income has already been earned. The consequences have already been created. That's why proactive planning is so valuable. Planning gives you choices. Waiting often removes those choices. And retirement is one stage of life where flexibility can be extremely valuable. The ability to adjust income sources, manage withdrawals, and evaluate future consequences may help preserve thousands of dollars over time. Another common misunderstanding involves the idea that higher income automatically means a better outcome. In theory, earning more sounds great. In practice, what matters is the amount that remains available after taxes, fees, and other financial effects have been considered. That's why retirees should never evaluate an opportunity using only the advertised return. The real question is much bigger. How does this decision affect my overall financial picture? That question should be asked before moving money. before opening new accounts, before making major withdrawals, and before assuming a higher return automatically improves retirement security. Because sometimes a decision that appears beneficial on paper creates unexpected consequences elsewhere. The most financially successful retirees understand this principle. They think several steps ahead. They don't just ask what happens today. They ask what happens next year, and the year after that, and the year after that. That long-term perspective helps them avoid many of the traps that catch other retirees by surprise. Now let's discuss something that often goes unnoticed until it's too late: lifestyle inflation during retirement. Many people associate lifestyle inflation with younger workers receiving promotions and salary increases. But retirees can experience a version of the same problem. When account balances rise and interest income increases, spending sometimes increases as well. The retiree feels wealthier. Expenses gradually expand. Small purchases become larger purchases. Occasional luxuries become routine expenses. At first, the changes seem harmless. Then inflation rises. Unexpected expenses appear. Medical costs increase. Home repairs become necessary. And suddenly the financial cushion isn't as large as it once appeared. This is why preserving flexibility matters so much. Retirement isn't just about maximizing income. It's about maintaining resilience. A resilient retirement plan can adapt to surprises, and surprises will happen. Markets change, tax rules change, healthcare costs change, economic conditions change. The retirees who prepare for those possibilities are usually better positioned than those who assume everything will remain the same. One of the most powerful habits a retiree can develop is conducting an annual financial review. Not a quick glance at a bank statement. A real review. A review that examines income sources. A review that examines taxes. A review that evaluates spending patterns. A review that identifies risks before they become problems. Many people spend more time planning a vacation than reviewing their retirement finances. Yet one of those decisions affects a week, the other affects decades. Even a few hours spent reviewing your financial picture each year can produce tremendous value. Because awareness creates opportunities. When you understand your numbers, you gain control. When you ignore your numbers, you surrender control. And retirement is too important to leave on autopilot. Another important consideration involves emergency funds. Financial experts often recommend keeping cash reserves available for unexpected events. That advice remains valid. The question isn't whether emergency savings should exist. The question is, how much is appropriate? Some retirees keep nearly every available dollar in cash because they fear market volatility. Others keep almost no cash at all. Both extremes can create challenges. The ideal balance depends on personal circumstances, income sources, monthly expenses, risk tolerance, health considerations, future goals. Every retiree is different. That's why cookie-cutter advice can be dangerous. What works perfectly for one household may be completely inappropriate for another. Financial planning becomes more effective when it is customized rather than generalized. And customization starts with understanding your own situation, not your neighbor's situation, not an online influencer's situation, your situation. Because ultimately, you're the one living with the results. As retirement progresses, another factor becomes increasingly important: simplicity. Many retirees accumulate financial accounts over decades. Old savings accounts, multiple retirement accounts, investment accounts, certificates of deposit, various financial products purchased at different stages of life. Eventually, managing everything becomes complicated. Complexity creates opportunities for mistakes. Forgotten accounts, missed deadlines, confusing paperwork, duplicated strategies. Simplification doesn't necessarily mean eliminating accounts. It means understanding their purpose. Every account should have a job. Every dollar should have a reason for being where it is. When financial systems become easier to understand, decision-making often improves. And when decision-making improves, financial outcomes frequently improve as well. At the heart of all of this is one simple truth. Retirement planning is no longer just about saving money. For many people, the saving phase is already complete. The challenge now is management. Management of income, management of taxes, management of benefits, management of risk, management of opportunities. And those responsibilities require a different mindset than the one used during working years. The good news is that most retirees already possess the discipline needed to succeed. After all, reaching retirement usually requires years of saving, patience, and responsible financial behavior. The foundation is already there. What's needed now is awareness. Awareness of how different financial pieces fit together. Awareness of how decisions create ripple effects. Awareness of how small adjustments can produce meaningful long-term results. The objective isn't perfection. No financial plan will ever be perfect. The objective is progress, better decisions, better preparation, better understanding. Those improvements often matter far more than chasing a slightly higher return. As we come to the end of this discussion, remember the central lesson. A high-yield savings account is not automatically good or bad. It is a tool. And like any tool, its effectiveness depends on how it is used. For some retirees, it may be exactly the right choice. For others, the amount being held in that account may deserve closer examination. The answer isn't found in a commercial. The answer isn't found in a headline. The answer is found in your numbers, your income, your benefits, your expenses, your goals, your future plans. That's why understanding the complete picture is so important. The retirees who achieve lasting financial confidence are rarely the ones who obsess over a single account balance. They're the ones who understand how every piece of their financial life works together. They understand that retirement success isn't measured solely by how much money enters an account. It's measured by how effectively that money supports the life they want to live. So, take some time this week to review your financial situation. Look beyond the interest rate. Look beyond the account balance. Look beyond the marketing promises. Ask deeper questions. Calculate the broader impact. Understand the connections, because financial confidence doesn't come from assumptions. It comes from knowledge. It comes from preparation. And it comes from making informed decisions before small issues become large problems. The money you've spent decades building deserves that level of attention, and the future you've worked so hard to create deserves it too. Stay informed, stay proactive, keep learning. And remember that the most valuable financial tool you possess isn't a bank account, an investment, or a retirement plan. It's your ability to understand how all of them work together. SSA Insights Pro.